guys, welcome to Tales from a Retro Gamer, episode number 32. Once again, my lovely wife, Carice, has joined me. Has been nice enough to join me on this episode.
Hey.
Thank you so much for indulging me in my geeky pursuits. So, last week I talked about what people are now calling, some of you are calling my Intellivision girlfriend episode, which I know you love when I talk about my old girlfriends.
It's my favorite.
Well, the only reason I bring that up is because I want to talk about the Odyssey 2, the Pickaxe Pete competition at the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee, that you actually went to.
I did.
Which is that gives you a little bit of cred in my book. A little bit of cred. That's pretty awesome. But the reason I bring up last week's episode is because Pickaxe Pete, I discovered in 1982 when it came out. My friend Ray had it at his house, and I would ride my bike over there. And it just so happens that Ray was dating my Intellivision girlfriend's cousin. So we would go out on double dates and stuff, and we had a lot of fun. And anyway, so Ray did have an Odyssey 2, and he had two super awesome games. Attack of the Time Lord, which is a terrific shooter, and Pickaxe Pete, which was a great arcade-style game. Now, these were so much different than the games I'd played before on the Odyssey 2, like Crypto Logic, Speedway, just some fun, baseball, some fun games, but not arcade-style, super, like more Atari-like games that were more exciting. And so Pickaxe Pete in particular was awesome. It's sort of a climbing game or a non-scrolling platformer. Did you ever play Pickaxe Pete or hear of it?
No,
you
afraid not. And this is where I would interject that it's a good thing I didn't meet you when we were younger, because I didn't have a game system. You would not have given me the time of day.
Hey, if you would have had a basketball hoop, that would work. Did you have a basketball hoop?
We did have a basketball hoop.
Okay, so maybe that would have worked. Anyway, so Pickaxe Pete was just an awesome game. You climb ladders, you jump, you duck, you crush boulders with your pickaxe. The pickaxe will disappear after a while, and you have to go somewhere else on the screen to get another one. It's super dynamic. There's always something going on at the screen at the same time. You crush boulders. You get keys to enter doors. It's just a really fun, dynamic, exciting game. It's a lot more Atari-like than a lot of offerings at the time, for other consoles. It's just action-packed. It's a lot of fun. Now, in the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee, which was kind of, previous fairs had been held in New York and different, more exciting places. Knoxville, Tennessee was the home of the 1982 World's Fair. And the last day of the fair, they had a Pickaxe Pete Pick-Off, which was the big, competition, big international competition. Now, before I talk about this competition, you actually went to the fair sometime in the summer?
We did, in that summer of '82. It's interesting because my parents, we always loved to travel anyway, but the year I was born, in 1968, San Antonio hosted the Hemisphere, which was a World's Fair. And so my parents had gone to that way back when they lived in that part of Texas. And so when they found out that there was going to be a World's Fair at Knoxville, they figured, hey, that's driving distance.
Sort of within driving distance.
Right. And we ended up going to that fair, and then in '84 went to the New Orleans World's Fair as well. But, these cities, they would jump on this World's Fair idea to try to generate revenue for their city and, to be an economic boom, and didn't really pan out that well for Knoxville, but we had a great time.
We'll get to that in a little bit about how it was kind of a doomed fair, and how Bill Kunkel wrote about it in his Confessions of the Game Doctor book. But before we get to that, talk about just your experience going to that. Y'all enjoyed it. Y'all didn't notice that it was kind of a B-list fair or anything like that? You had a good time?
No, we had a great time. It was my mom, dad, my cousin Annette, and I went, and we had a great time. And
it was 1982 during the height of the video game craze.
Right. So a couple of big exhibits. I remember the Japan exhibit. They had a robot that would paint pictures.
Now, that was big in '82. That was pretty advanced really AI for then.
That was probably the longest line I waited in for the whole time. I still remember waiting in that line.
So it was just a robot that would physically move a paintbrush around?
Yes. And I had the painting for a long time. It was the logo of the fair, the little flame logo of the fair.
So were the paintings pretty rudimentary?
Oh, yes. Yeah, very basic. But
no
still,
Bob Ross
to
type
see,
robot?
No happy little trees and the robot paintings. But no, it was pretty cool to get to see that. And China had an exhibit area, and in their space they had pieces of the Great Wall of China, which for us in East Texas, that was a pretty cool
pretty
thing
exotic,
to see.
right? Sure.
I remember the Australia exhibit. Outside there they had all of these windmills, And I know energy was the big theme of the fair.
Right.
So I remember that, and I remember, just going to the different countries' exhibits and seeing what they had to show off about their countries, and it was fun. I specifically remember the Hungary exhibit because they had a giant Rubik's Cube out front, and that was the height of
Rubik's Cube was still really big in '82.
Yes, and inside their exhibit they even had a giant Rubik's Cube that was motorized and would spin around and stuff, so that was pretty fun.
Now, what gaming stuff do you remember from the fair?
Well, there was a big Pac-Man store,
right?
And I wasn't much of a gamer then, sorry, but 1982 when I was 14, I was not that into the home system, so it was all about arcade gaming, and even that I was pretty much sticking to the mainstream.
But everybody liked Pac-Man.
But yeah, I love Pac-Man, and so it was pretty cool. I bought a pair of Pac-Man shoelaces.
Now, did you buy it, or did your parents buy it for you?
Of course my
I
parents
kind of think your
bought
parents
it
probably
for
bought it for
me.
you. Because see, on your vacations, y'all were the type that would visit the gift shops and go to the stores, and you would get the things, and us pretty much not.
Well, yeah.
Not that I'm bitter. So you actually have an artifact from the fair.
Yeah, and the other thing was kind of a little hybrid of the things. I had the Pac-Man Rubik's Cube that was for sale.
Can you
at
put
the
it
fair.
together real quick?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I probably could have back in 1982. I was pretty good at that, but not anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was kind of fun to have a Pac-Man Rubik's Cube.
Here, let's take a good look at that. See, it's got the ghosts and the keys and the Pac-Man guys on it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. It's a fun little souvenir.
Right, and you got shoestrings as well, which we couldn't find.
Well, yeah, we can't find the shoestrings. I'm sure they're in our garage somewhere. But we went through a whole phase, my friends and I, where we would have fancy shoestrings all the time. So
Right.
I had my Pac-Man shoestrings. But beyond that, I don't remember seeing anything about Pickaxe Pete.
Right. Well, the Pickaxe Pete Pickoff was the final day of the fair. That was a big competition. Pickaxe Pete fans from all over the country came to the the fair in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the whole fair was supposed to be a shot in the arm for the Knoxville economy. Apparently, unemployment rates were really high, and there was just horrible unemployment rate, and just the whole city was pretty much in an economic downturn. And Confessions of the Game Doctor, that great book by Bill Kunkel that I talked about in a previous episode. I talked about 10 gaming things I'm thankful for, and one of those was Bill Kunkel, the late great Bill Kunkel. Well, in his book, he wrote about this fair. Now, his view of the fair wasn't quite as positive as yours. So if you...
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah.
So here's what he says. He says, shabby and third rate, smattering of tourists who were somehow lured to this economic horror show. That would be us. It says, no exciting rides, no futuristic technology, except for the painting robot, I'm sure. Holograms.
He painted this in a super negative light. Even
sure.
I think even beyond, I think there are parts that he kind of overdid it a little, because it sounds like you had a lot of fun.
We did.
Right. So anyway, go ahead.
But, anyway, easily entertained. No holograms, no laser light shows or movies projected onto a domed ceiling. Just a collection of dreary exhibits seemingly sponsored by the petrochemical boogeyman, paying lip service to ideas like solar energy while in fact presenting it as tedious, pie-in-the-sky tech. If they had the World's Fair in Poland during the 70s, I imagine this is what it would be like. Lots of exhibits of farm machinery and other wonders guaranteed to dim the lights in the eyes of the most inquisitive child.
Did it dim your lights?
It did not dim my lights. And in fact, we went back in '84, we went to New Orleans to that World's Fair.
So it didn't ruin you for the idea of going to the World's Fair?
No, of course not.
Right.
No.
Well, so the final day of the World's Fair, of this World's Fair, was in October. And the staff of Electronic Games Magazine went there to cover the Pickaxe Pete Pickoff. Now, apparently, the staff members hadn't really spent much time with the game, because they talked about the game not being that great, and it's just kind of, and in particular, it was a hard game to sort of do a Howard Cosell routine on.
Right.
That really dates me, talking about Howard Cosell. Anyway, like a play-by-play. Yeah. So Bill Kunkel was there, Arnie Katz was there, and they were both, sort of reporting on this event. And so here's, in his book Confessions of the Game Doctor, he talked a little bit about that experience. He said it was impossible to do anything like a play-by-play or even sensible commentary over this game. Video games they're not quite as interesting to talk about the action on the screen as maybe sports, at least with Pickaxe Pete, according to Bill.
Right.
It's impossible to even do sensible commentary while watching it, but we had microphones in our hands, so we were obviously supposed to say something. These were the best pickaxers in the country, but making this lifeless contest seem interesting while standing in the middle of an exhibit hall that was already being given the eye by the demolition crew was far from my most gratifying gaming moment. So it was the final day of the fair. The organizers obviously saw that it wasn't the economic boom. There was kind of probably a lull over the whole thing.
Right.
And he went on to talk about how Arnie Katz had bad vision to begin with, so it was kind of hard for him to commentate on what was going on. The bright lights in the venue reflected off the TV, so it was kind of really hard to see what was going on, especially, filming it. And he talked about, the attendees just sort of milling about, didn't seem all that engaged in what was going on.
Right.
They just seemed kind of bored. And so... Anyway, so they did have the competition. There was quite a few. Magnavox was there. And I think Magnavox was located in Knoxville. But anyway, so there was lines of TVs and everything. People playing this game, and it turns out a 10-year-old named Tony Scardino ended up winning, and he won $6,000 worth of gold because it's a pickaxe Pete. You're a minor type game,
Perfect.
and so he won. And he won, and so the reporter asked him, I'll put a link to the YouTube video where it shows, him being interviewed in the competition, so you guys can check that out. Yeah, 10-year-old Tony Scardino won. Tony, not Tiny.
I said Tommy.
Oh, Tommy. He told the reporter that he's not going to tell his friends about winning because they would bother him about it. Now, I can kind of relate to this. When I was in high school, our bowling team, I was in bowling, but I wasn't on the team. But when it came to the championships, one of their bowler was out, and I was pretty good at bowling. I grew up playing sports and all that kind of stuff, and they asked me to fill in. And so we ended up winning the championship, and I got a trophy for the high score, and I got a trophy for, winning the team winning the tournament and all this stuff. And so there was a party that night at, this popular kid's house, and I was semi-popular in high school for basketball and just kind of being crazy. And, had a lot of friends and whatnot. But I wasn't like, in the cheerleader star quarterback category. Just maybe a notch, probably pretty far below that. But I had a lot of friends and went to this party, and it was a lot of fun. All my friends were there, and I walk in, hey, what's going on? Because I was late, and I told him, I made the big mistake of telling him about the bowling and about winning the championship. And that did not go over too well. That was probably even nerdier than winning the Pickaxe Pete competition.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Oh, okay, thanks. I think those trophies are at my mom's house somewhere. Anyway, thanks, Mom, for that. So last week, we had talked about the Intellivision, or I talked about the Intellivision and my Intellivision girlfriend, and I had some cool comments about that. I asked you guys, what was your memories, early with the Intellivision? What were some of your early memories with the console? And Inty fan said, got an Intellivision in 1979, and over the next few years, Dad got us about 40 games for it.
Wow.
Now, 40 games, I didn't know any kid with 40 games for any console back in the 70s or 80s. Now, I knew some kids that had Ataris with 20-something games, but I didn't know anybody with any, 40. He said he loved Astro Smash, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, Triple Action, Burger Time, Sea Battle, and the Intellivision with B-17 bomb, or he spelled it out because that's, as you know, that's pretty iconic famous, with the Intellivision. Even you know about that.
Even I heard about
Right. He says, great stories. And he asked me, what happened to your Intellivision girlfriend? Well, she passed. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
no, just kidding. No, she actually went on to marry a fireman. So, and they went on to have kids and everything, I believe. But she was great. She lived happily ever after with a fireman. So,
but does she have all of this?
Is that a good thing? Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it, guys. If you could like this video, I'd really appreciate it. That would really help the channel. If you could subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it. And thank you so much. Thank you for being on again. And
you're welcome.
Hope to have you on again in the future.
Great.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.